All right, so I'm back with another Lexington Learns, this time with Sean Osborne of OSD Engineering Consultants. Welcome.
Thank you, Aaron.
Um, so the reason we're talking today is because I had just read an article that you were recognized by the Black and Latino Caucus in the legislature of Massachusetts for your contributions to Black excellence. So I wanted to start by asking you about that. What was some of the work that you were recognized for?
Well, I want to start off by again thanking Senator Friedman and Representative Sicolo for nominating me for the Black Excellence Award. It was a surprise. It was I guess, is a culmination of the work I've been doing for the last 3 years with the Association of Black Citizens of Lexington. So, I'm the co-founder and founding president of the association. And what we've been able to do is to uncover and share what I would consider the Black excellence that's around us, whether it's our neighbors who immigrated from Cameroon, and we had a cultural festival celebrating them pre-pandemic, or our neighbors who are Haitian background, and then doing that, because one of the things about ABCL is that we are a coalition. Blackness isn't defined by anything more than our melanin richness and our African ancestry. So that includes folks from the African diaspora who have been in the United States for 3, 5, 10, 20 generations, or folks from the Caribbean or from Central America or South America, or who were born in Europe, or we have folks from different regions from the African continent as well, all living in Lexington. So when we say Black, it includes all those people of African ancestry. And so one of the things that we wanted to do was to recognize those pieces of the coalition. And thus we had the African Diaspora Cultural Festivals. And then, because we are in historic Lexington, let's talk about our history. Who are the Black folks who were living in Lexington prior to 1775? And who are those who continue living in our town over the centuries? And so through the Black History Project of Lexington, we created the banners and did other things. So I see myself as the conduit to exposing others to the Black excellence around us.
That's excellent. No, I mean, that's a great way of thinking about it, because I think you said it was a surprise to win that award. I don't think it was a surprise to anybody around you, because when we started our conversation earlier today, I said you wear many hats in this town, in life, in in the world, and I only met you this morning, but I had heard of you in so many different contexts around Lexington the past year that I've been in this job. And, everybody speaks really highly of you. So, I don't even know you, and it was not a surprise to me. Let's put it that way. But some of the projects that you just described, like the banners and the projects you've done with the Historical Society to uncover and rediscover some of the stories that, as you said, they've been here since before the revolution. I think that's really interesting work. It's certainly very much in line with what historians are trying to do around the world, and sort of, again, rediscovering in literature, in history, in every discipline, the contributions that have been made. What do you think is so important about that work?
You know, I thank you for broadening, the impact. We get caught up into what's possible based upon of what's happened in the past, right? And it would be great if more of us took leaps of faith, right? Can't see it, but I will make it. I will make it so. And so I think for the majority of us who need to have known it's been done before, it's important to expand our knowledge so that we can say, oh, okay, so we can talk about land ownership in Lexington in the 1700s, 1703, 05, in that area, through the Burdos, Black family there. We can talk about the interactions between the free Black families and the indentured white families in Lexington, as well as the landowning white families in Lexington, and think, okay, so there's always been issues of class and culture in our community, and there's always been that discussion, right? And so we can hopefully then envision the possible by having that, and whether it's the writers or the other folks who the trailblazers that we recognize, people can say, oh no, that has happened before, as part of the discussions that we've been having about the banners, in social media and in person, virtually, that I uncovered, relearned, as you said, that in between Leona Martin being the first Black person in Lexington who was elected to townwide office in the housing, and Melanie Thompson, who was just elected for the planning board, there was another woman who's on the school committee who I had no idea. We had just crossed paths in terms of our time here in Lexington, and I had no idea that she had lived in town, been elected. But once I asked the question about her, folks who I knew were like, oh yeah, I remember her. I worked on her campaign. We did this. Oh, here's a picture of her. Oh, this is where she lives now. And again, you're uncovering, and now you can go back into, oh, that's, of course we'll have a Black person in the school committee again. We had someone before.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's interesting, actually. You said that you put yourself in with the most of us when you said we need to see that it's been done before, but you took a leap of faith when you started your own company, right? So you, that is not an easy thing to do. You and I were talking about that a little earlier. I have the experience of founding a company too, and that's all about being able to see what isn't there yet. So how did you come to that decision that you wanted to strike out on your own?
I have wanted to be an entrepreneur since I was middle school, high school. I wanted to start my own company, engineering firm, when I was in college, and I was thinking about different ways. And one of my uncles, who was one of the first Black principals in a law firm in Houston back in the day, said, that's nice, Sean, but why don't you work for somebody else first, get a little experience, and then go off on your own. Okay. So he, and it's important. It's interesting how people want to know who you know in the consulting world. And so it's all this shorthand. And so between my uncle, and then a colleague from Florida who I was sitting when I was in the Air Force. I was sitting in a room with two engineering consultants, and I said, I want to be like you when my 5 years of active duty service, as my time I owed them for ROTC was up. I said, so what do I need? And they said, oh, well, it's all about credentials and consulting. So get your master's and get your PE. I said, oh. I said, yeah. It doesn't matter. You want to have those to answer the questions, and then you can show what you can do. Mm-hmm. So I got my master's, I got my PE, and it's amazing still with, that was, I'm so old. That was in the mid 90s when I left the military and became a consultant. And people still ask me about the people I work with. Oh, did you know so-and-so? Oh, did you work with so-and-so? Oh, were you in this community? And it's that shorthand of, oh, okay, you know what I'm talking about. Folks that I know. Mm-hmm. And that relationship part of the business, I think that was what my uncle was trying to tell me. Mm-hmm. It's not enough to know. It's who you know.
Sure. Well, we hear that all the time, right? It's not what you know, it's who you know, but it's the work has to be your reputation, right? The work that you do is what people know you for, but then those people who know you are also the other piece of it. You have to right. Have those testimonials and referrals and backup and so forth. How have you fared? How's your business fared through the pandemic? Has that changed the kinds of projects people are doing or what they're seeking out?
Yeah, we're on the smaller side, so we're not working on the larger construction projects. So for us, it was harder for our clients in mass to figure out what was necessary for them to pay for. So I'm in the primarily, I'm a civil engineer. So primarily our customers are municipalities. Mm-hmm. And so as most of your tax bills, your water bills, your sewer bills, folks like, do I have to? And that revenue is then what's used to pay consultants like me. And so there was some projects that went on hold, and others just went away because folks weren't spending the money. And that was a reminder. These things we always hear. You want to have a diversity of clients. Having big, small, and medium-sized clients, right, allowed us to keep going. And then there are some things that some work that's just required, right? Mm-hmm. So that also helped us get through. We service a regulated industry, so that also helped us get through. But you can see 2021 has people, our clients have sort of found their footing. They see what's going to be happening ahead, and they're starting to open up their purse strings and start more work. So that's been good. Been a good first quarter.
So it's interesting because sometimes I feel like there's a synergy out there in the universe that because I happen to be thinking about a thing, then I suddenly hear about, I'm reading this article and hearing this on the radio and so forth. So it's one of those moments because I'm talking to you and I was doing a little research on your company and your background and so forth. And I know that resilience in systems is one of the things that you focus on. And just this past week, I've been hearing a lot about, because the new transportation secretary, Pete Buttigieg, has been advocating for infrastructure upgrades. And we've heard this for decades. And we saw that, they've been putting this in the context, like I said, this week, I've been hearing about, the Flint, Michigan water system and the electrical grid and the water systems failing in Texas when they had the massive storms a couple weeks ago. So what do you see in terms of what's necessary for like you said, there are compliance issues that have to be done every year. There are projects that people kick down the road when they don't have enough money or this isn't the right time. What falls in the middle that we aren't paying enough attention to?
Contingency planning is probably the thing that we don't think about, and one of the benefits of having the pandemic is it's been sort of a reset. So one of the things that we do, within OSD is, in addition to designing and permitting and construction oversight, is we also do contingency planning. And so in 2019, we conducted several tabletop exercises, two of which the scenarios were a pandemic. and so what you do in a tabletop exercise is you say, okay, this is what's happened in the past. Now imagining it's happening in the future to you. And you build this world that people then act within, right? These are so for the pandemic, I was using the oddly enough, the Texas plan.
Okay.
Texas had a wonderful plan online, and what became obvious as we went through the actual pandemic is that there are planners and then there are actors, and they're not always in the same room. And so what became obvious to some of my clients is, oh, this is what you've been telling us for the last, we've been in business now since 2000, for last 9 years, right? So yes, things are going to happen. You have to think about, what does it look like from your personnel standpoint, from your infrastructure, from your power, all these things you need to have a backup. So you want to have a plan A, plan B, plan C. So like the A-Team, that old TV show, from childhood, right? So you want to have those different plans because you need to have a fallback. And when you're in the water world and the sewer world, I'm sure folks in your household would love to always get up in the morning, brush their teeth, make their coffee, and then flush their toilet and have it keep going away from them. You don't want it coming back. Small things, right? So details. So these are the things that when you think about what happened in Texas, you think, okay, well, they need to imagine the contingency, and then once you imagine it, you then have to plan for how, what parts of those contingencies can you afford to address now, and which ones you're going to address in the future, and so I see the government, federal and state governments, giving incentives for utilities and municipalities to address that. Especially Massachusetts, we have the municipal vulnerability program, that Governor Baker initiated, and so we're moving slowly towards being ready. But what I'd like for you and your family to think about is, just like what happened in the pandemic, the government will not have the resources to be there. And I've seen more and more online training from FEMA, heeding that message to the elderly, to folks with pets, to folks with children, to folks with disabilities, saying, whatever your condition is, if you are a singleton, if you have a large family, you need to think about, how do I take care of myself for the first 3 days?
Mhm.
And then as the pandemic has rolled on, they've said, well, okay, for the first 7 days. Right. And so you see that stretch, right? And
Yeah.
so, and it's not, what does your neighbor have? What do you have? And so you have to look at, look at your house. What are the hazards,
Mhm.
for the season? High winds, flooding, what's your plan to address those hazards?
Mhm.
Okay. And then you have to do the last step, which is you have to actually pay attention to the news.
Mhm.
And that's through apps or watching local news, or whatever works for you. I'm an app person. Many of my clients watch local news. And so whatever works for you, just so you know, okay, it's this season, this is
Mhm.
where that storm is, this is coming up. And because if, I tell, the municipalities I work with, your job is easier when folks like Sean aren't calling you and saying, so I've lost power. It's been about, I don't know, an hour or so. And I don't have access to this, and this. And I just run out of my prescription medicine. And oh, by the way, I have, someone here at my house who has a motorized wheelchair, and we don't have power for that, or someone who can't get through the front door and they're having a heart attack or a medical condition, right? So all these things you have to walk through, and
Mhm.
so what I'm hoping is to see more of that work, where the work that I've been to municipalities and the work with put this at-risk communities. And
Mhm.
so when you think about contingencies and the pandemic, it's a lot broader, right, than we usually think about what looks like the at risk. And so that's that's what I love about what I do. I really, the contingency work is fun. I love being an engineer, but the contingency work and the planning and working with people, it excites me, if you couldn't tell.
No, that's excellent, because people need a lot of help with that. Humans are not good at remembering what happened and then using that to learn lessons and plan for the next time. I mean, there's been a lot of talk about, as we start to emerge from the pandemic, are we going to forget everything that we learned over the past? Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
yes, we are.
Yes, of course we are.
Yes, we are.
But it's interesting that you say that, because we were talking before I started recording that you and I have both lived in Texas, and my parents are still there. They just lived through the no electricity and no water thing. But they, in Texas, I think they do a good job. The government does a good job of urging preparedness, right? So there's a lot of messaging and a lot of communication that goes into it. And it's, they have signs on the highway flashing that, hurricane season is starting May 1st. Make sure you have your backup supplies. Make sure you have, at least 3 days of water per person. Make sure you have, so
Thank you.
my mom takes this very seriously. And
Great.
she had all of their bathtubs filled up with water as soon as there was any danger of this. And so, they had their boil water order for more than a week, and they were fine because they had a supply of clean water stocked up. My dad's the kind, you'll appreciate this because you're an ex-military man as well. My dad's the kind who's like, well, I have my shovel, I'll dig the latrine when it comes time. um, it's never actually gotten to that point, thank goodness. But they are people who are like, we are prepared, we will do this. but it takes some bad experiences, unfortunately, for people to get to that point. I mean, we would like, I'm sure you would like for your clients to not have to go through it once first before they build that into their planning overall.
It's true. I would, and I'm glad. I love that you had all those 3 days of supply of water, anything else. What I found is that by having the annual conversation about contingency planning, that the individuals in the classroom, year over year, they became more prepared. They got the generator for the house.
Mm-hmm.
They started stocking water because everybody else in the room was stocking water. They started hearing, okay, I can do this. And I was talking to a fire chief. It was beautiful. He had been stocking up the cash over time for the go bag for each member of his family. And just a few dollars a month for each go bag. And then he walked through, if it's this kind of storm, we're going to go this direction. That kind of storm, we're going to go that direction.
Mm-hmm.
And by we, I mean you. I'm the fire chief. I had to stay here, but you guys can go that way. And so you start seeing your head. Okay, I have responsibilities. This is what I'll do. And then since you have the pets, you'll appreciate that he then walked them through what's going on with the pets.
Yeah.
One of the things that is difficult is if you're going to a shelter, what is that? It's hard enough to go to a shelter and keep it safe and clean for only humans.
Mm-hmm.
And then you throw in pets, and pets bring in their own needs and own bodily functions.
Right.
And they bring their, people who are allergic to cats or dogs or have fear of them. And right, so what does that look like? And then you look from this municipal standpoint, where do the bodies come from to maintain that shelter?
Mm-hmm.
And so most shelters are covered for the first 2 or 3 years. So one of the things that that we're looking at from a business standpoint is houses of worship, and how they can become a resource within the emergency response network for municipalities.
Okay.
Cooling centers, heating centers, most of them are accessible. So perhaps those folks, if you're running an overflow, maybe those individuals and their families can go to houses of worship. But there's different ways of thinking about how do you bring all of the resources to bear in a community, and that goes back to communication and meetings. So like for you and I, if it wasn't for this interview and event, we wouldn't known that there were two folks from Texas,
Right.
family in Texas talking about this stuff. And so that's the other part, is how do we get how do you build a community that's focused? How do you build a community and then use those relationships to make us more resilient?
Mm-hmm.
Right. So there's many ways to use the R word. And again, it's part of it is just, okay, so what are you doing in your house? Oh, you're doing that. Oh, that's a good idea. Where'd you get that? And so you start sharing your different ideas, because what you do with your pets, with your loved ones, your connections, it's all regional and it's personal. But getting you to, and one thing I will say to people who are listening is that I love food. Food is life. And as one of my commanders said when I was in the military, there's no need to add suffering on top of what you're already going through. So I believed that we went to the field, because I was in the Air Force, that it was important, since we were practicing, that we practice with hot meals, a warm breakfast and a warm dinner. Lunch, okay. But I wanted good food to start and end the day. And in the same way, when you stockpile your food, whether it's as as a municipal worker or as a homeowner, stockpile the food that you actually like,
Mhm.
that is shelf stable.
Mhm.
And every 3 to 6 months, cycle it through, taste it, and then think, holy cow, this is nasty, or this is good. And because there's some things you'll see and you'll think, like, I've gone through it and I thought, oh, this will be great. It's shelf stable. I like it. I used to like it when I was a child. Oh, I hate it now.
Yeah.
Right. And so you don't want to add on to your suffering. And
Right.
so that's the part. It's hard enough to have no running water, no power, be cold, be too hot. Enjoy your food and throw in some snacks. Throw in your favorite snack cookies or crackers or whatever. Yeah, they have no nutritional value, but mental health is important.
Sure.
And so your Calgon moment may be sitting there and breaking out your favorite cookie and going, oh, I love Nabisco, right? And that's good. Whatever gets you through the day, because it's hard and the recovery will be long.
So I'm gonna bring this for full circle as we wrap up and say that what I'm hearing, your work with the community and your work with your clients, it goes together in ways that might not be obvious, because for both of them, you're talking about trust, you're talking about communication, you're talking about building a network and getting to know the people around you, so that you can rely on each other. And it starts with first knowing and understanding and acknowledging and respecting the people around you. And then you begin to see each other as allies and resources that you can draw on when something, whatever the crisis or catastrophe or even just difficulty is that comes along. Now you know those people around you and what they're good at, what they are going to need help with, what they bring to the table, all of that.
Yes, I'm glad. It took me a long time to see that, so I'm glad that you picked it up faster than I did. But yes, in the end, the idea that that a chain is only as strong as its weakest link is something that's always been important to me. So by understanding your own strengths and then the strengths of others, that you can also within that relationship have the trust to then address their weaknesses and work with them to improve them. And one of the things that bless the federal government, what they continue to say, and the volunteers out there, is you have to take care of yourself and your household first.
Mm-hmm.
So that's also true of utilities, and it's also true of households, right? You cannot offer someone else shelter if your roof is leaking.
Right.
And so one of the things that, in terms of knowing everyone, there's a story that I tell about what happened when a hurricane went through and took away one of our Air Force bases in southern Florida. Is that the commander, the Navy commander, said to his folks, go home and take care of your families and send them out. So understand that by the time the general public hears the evacuate, others have already been told. They don't get caught behind you, right? So he did that so that when the folks came back, they could focus on the mission,
Right.
because they knew their loved ones taken care of. So in the same way, each of us needs to focus on ourselves and our families, so then we can help the community.
Yeah.
And then each department, each municipality, each utility is doing the same thing, so they can say, oh, Lexington's having problems. Nope, we've got it under control. Now we can help Bedford, we can help Waltham, or vice versa. Right. And that's the idea. And so part of community resilience is individual resilience. So I thank you for catching that theme of my life's work.
I thank you for taking the time to talk with me. It's been a great conversation, and I really appreciate it. And I want to congratulate you again on your award, and really I want to thank you for the example that you set in the town, because I think that having a high profile person like you who is working along these lines, making these connections and doing this work and bringing things to light, I think it benefits everybody. So thank you.
You're welcome, Erin. I appreciate you reaching out and making the time on this beautiful day to have this conversation.
Thanks. Oh.